It all started with a simple ping, a single, faint signal that reached Earth from the farthest edge of our solar system. It was from the Magellan 7, a state-of-the-art deep space probe launched 15 years ago. Its mission had been ambitious: to map uncharted regions of interstellar space, analyze cosmic phenomena, and push the boundaries of human understanding. For 10 years, it faithfully transmitted data back to us: images of swirling nebulae, radiation readings from distant stars, and even whispers of dark matter interactions. Then, one day, it vanished. No warning, no distress signal, just silence. The scientific community mourned its loss. Billions of dollars in research and technology gone in an instant. But more than that, it was a blow to humanity's spirit, a reminder of how small we are in the vastness of the cosmos. The official explanation was that it had likely collided with an asteroid or been fried by a gamma-ray burst. Space is unforgiving after all, and so the Magellan 7 became another ghost in the endless void. Until last week. That's when the signal returned. At first, no one believed it. The coordinates were impossible, beyond the heliopause, where no human-made object should have been able to send a signal strong enough to reach us. But there it was, unmistakable, a steady, rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat. The telemetry confirmed it. The Magellan 7 was alive. Or something was. NASA scrambled to re-establish contact. Engineers worked around the clock, decoding the data packets embedded in the signal. What they found made no sense. The probe's systems had been altered, rewritten in ways that defied human engineering. Its hardware, designed to withstand the harshest conditions, now showed evidence of molecular restructuring. Materials that didn't exist on Earth, algorithms that seemed to evolve as they were analyzed. And then there were the images. They came through distorted at first, like static on an old television. But as the resolution improved, the room fell silent. The images weren't of stars or planets. They were of structures, gigantic alien constructs floating in the void. Some looked organic, like coral reefs grown to impossible scales. Others were geometric, almost crystalline, glowing with an eerie bioluminescence. And then there was the figure. It appeared in only one frame, but it was enough to freeze the blood of everyone who saw it. Humanoid, but wrong. Its limbs were too long, its proportions unsettling. Its eyes, or what passed for them, were empty voids, darker than the space behind it. And yet, it seemed to be looking directly at the camera, directly at us. The decision was made to retrieve the Magellan 7. It wasn't easy. The probe was now drifting near the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Pluto. A manned mission was out of the question, so NASA repurposed an unmanned retrieval craft to intercept it. The whole world watched as the operation unfolded in real time. When the probe was finally secured and brought back to Earth, the excitement was palpable. But it didn't last. The probe was quarantined in a high-security facility, surrounded by layers of electromagnetic shielding and armed guards. Scientists in hazmat suits began their analysis, carefully dismantling the probe piece by piece. What they found inside shouldn't have been possible. The core of the Magellan 7, the heart of its AI system, was gone. In its place was something else, a sphere about the size of a basketball, pulsating with a faint blue light. Its surface was smooth, almost liquid, yet solid to the touch. Instruments couldn't penetrate it. Radiation scanners went haywire in its presence. And then there was the sound. It started as a low hum, barely audible. But over time it grew louder, resonating through the facility. It wasn't just noise, it was a pattern, a sequence of tones that seemed almost intentional, like a language. Linguists were brought in, along with cryptographers and mathematicians. None of them could make sense of it. But then the sphere spoke. Not in words exactly. It was more like a projection, images and sensations flooding the minds of everyone in the room. Visions of distant worlds, alien civilizations, and technologies that defied comprehension. But there was something else, too. A warning. The visions turned darker. Desolate landscapes, burning skies, shadows consuming entire planets, And always that figure, watching, waiting. Panic spread like wildfire. Governments convened emergency meetings. Conspiracy theories exploded across the internet. Was this an alien message, a threat, or something worse? The scientists working on the sphere began to change. At first, it was subtle, insomnia, irritability. But soon, they started reporting strange dreams. Dreams of the figure, of its voice whispering in a language they couldn't understand. And then, one by one, they began to disappear. Security footage showed them walking out of the facility in the dead of night, their expressions blank, their movements mechanical. None of them were ever found. The project was shut down. The sphere was sealed in a lead-lined vault and buried deep beneath the Earth's surface. Officially, the incident never happened. The Magellan 7 was declared lost, and the world moved on. But I can't. I was one of the engineers who worked on the retrieval mission. I've seen the images, heard the sounds, felt the presence of that thing. And I know it's not over. The sphere may be buried, but its signal is still out there, growing stronger, reaching farther. And I can't shake the feeling that we've opened a door we were never meant to open. Sometimes, late at night, I hear the hum, faint but unmistakable, and I know it's calling to me, calling to all of us. Whatever came back with the Magellan 7, it's not done with us. Not yet. And when it comes, we won't be ready. I thought I could move on. After all, what choice did I have? The project was classified at the highest level, buried under mountains of red tape and non-disclosure agreements. Even speaking about it could land me in a prison cell, or worse. So I tried to forget. I went back to my quiet life, tinkering with satellites and communications arrays, pretending that everything was normal. But deep down, I knew better. You don't just walk away from something like that. It stays with you. It changes you. The first sign came 3 weeks after the Magellan 7 retrieval. I was working late in my home office, staring at a screen full of telemetry data when my computer froze. Not just a crash. This was different. The screen flickered, lines of code scrolling faster than I could read. And then, there it was, the signal. That same rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat. But this time, it wasn't coming from space. It was coming from inside my house. I scrambled to shut everything down, pulled the plug, yanked out the battery. But the signal didn't stop. It was everywhere now. My phone buzzed with static. The lights flickered in sync with the pulse. Even the damn coffee maker started humming as if it were alive. And then, for just a moment, I heard it. A voice. It wasn't human. It wasn't even a language, not exactly. But somehow I understood. 3 words burned into my mind like a brand. We are coming. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every shadow seemed to crawl. Every sound felt like a whisper. By morning, I had convinced myself it was stress, maybe some kind of auditory hallucination. But the rational part of my brain couldn't explain why my computer, disconnected from the internet, completely isolated, had been broadcasting an interstellar signal. The next day, I got a call. It was one of my old colleagues from the Magellan 7 project, Dr. Elias Carter. He sounded shaken, his voice trembling like he'd seen a ghost. "They're watching us," he said, barely above a whisper. "I can feel them. Everywhere I go, they're there." I tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't listen. He kept rambling about dreams, visions of the figure, standing at the edge of his bed, its empty eyes boring into his soul. He said he hadn't slept in days, that he was afraid to close his eyes. And then, just before he hung up, he said something that chilled me to the bone. "It's not just the scientists. It's spreading." I didn't understand what he meant at the time, but I would soon enough. The next few weeks were chaos. Reports started surfacing online, strange occurrences, people vanishing without a trace. A farmer in Iowa claimed his livestock had been mutilated, their bodies arranged in geometric patterns he couldn't explain. A pilot flying over the Pacific reported seeing a massive glowing structure beneath the waves, only for it to vanish moments later. And then there were the disappearances. At first, it was just the scientists who had worked on the sphere, but then it spread to their families, their friends, anyone who had come into contact with them. Entire neighborhoods emptied overnight, leaving behind homes filled with untouched meals and still-running televisions. The media called it mass hysteria, but those of us who knew the truth, we weren't so sure. I started noticing things too. People watching me from across the street, their faces obscured by shadows. Static on the radio whenever I drove too far from home, and always that hum, growing louder, closer. One night, I woke up to find my bedroom bathed in blue light. At first, I thought it was a dream, but then I saw it, the sphere, floating at the foot of my bed, pulsating with that same eerie glow. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. All I could do was watch as it hovered closer, its surface rippling like liquid metal. And then, it showed me. Visions flooded my mind, more vivid than anything I'd ever experienced. I saw Earth, our cities and oceans, our fragile little planet spinning in the void. And then I saw them, the constructs, the figure, an entire fleet of them, drifting silently through the darkness, their forms shifting and writhing like living shadows. They were waiting, watching, preparing. When I woke up, the sphere was gone, but the visions remained, etched into my memory like scars. I knew what they meant now. The Magellan 7 hadn't just disappeared, it had been taken, transformed, and whatever had done it, they were coming for us. I tried to warn people. I really did. But no one believed me. Why would they? I was just another crackpot conspiracy theorist ranting about aliens and doomsday. Even my closest friends started avoiding me, their polite smiles masking the fear in their eyes. I couldn't blame them. Hell, I didn't even believe myself half the time. But then, the attacks began. It started small: power outages, communication blackouts, satellites falling out of orbit for no apparent reason. But it escalated quickly. Entire cities plunged into darkness. Military drones hijacked mid-flight, turning on their operators. And always, the same message broadcast on every frequency, in every language. We are here. Panic swept the globe. Governments declared martial law, scrambling to contain the chaos. But it was too late. The constructs had arrived. They didn't come in ships, not like we imagined. They simply appeared, materializing out of thin air like ghosts. Their forms were impossible, shifting, fractal, defying the laws of physics. Bullets passed through them like smoke, missiles detonated harmlessly against their shimmering surfaces. And wherever they went, people vanished. No bodies, no blood. Just gone. I don't know how much longer we have. The resistance is holding out, but barely. We've managed to take down a few of the smaller constructs using EMPs, but the larger ones, nothing works. It's like trying to fight a hurricane with a slingshot. And yet, I can't shake the feeling that this isn't the end, that there's something else out there, something even worse. The figure. I see it in my dreams every night now, its empty eyes staring into mine. I think it's waiting for something, or someone. Maybe it's waiting for me. If you're hearing this, if you're still out there, don't give up. Humanity has faced extinction before, and we've always found a way to survive. Maybe we'll find a way this time too. But if we don't, if this really is the end, just know that we fought. We didn't go quietly. And maybe, just maybe, that will be enough. God help us all. The days blurred together after that. I don't even know how long it's been since the constructs arrived. Weeks, months. Time doesn't mean much anymore when you're living in a world that feels like it's on borrowed time. The cities are quiet now, their streets empty except for the occasional flicker of movement in the shadows. Most people have gone underground, hiding in bunkers or makeshift shelters. Others, well, they didn't make it. I'm one of the lucky ones, if you can call it that. I've been moving from place to place, staying just ahead of the constructs. They seem to hunt in patterns, sweeping through areas like wolves driving prey into a trap, but they're not infallible. They can be outsmarted, at least for now, That's what keeps me alive. The hope that maybe, just maybe, there's still a way to fight back. It was during one of those desperate moves that I found them, the resistance. I'd been traveling through the ruins of what used to be Denver, scavenging for supplies, when I heard the sound of voices, actual human voices. It had been so long since I'd heard anything but static and silence that I almost thought I was hallucinating. But as I crept closer, I saw them. A group of survivors huddled around a makeshift radio transmitter, their faces lit by the faint glow of a portable generator. They were armed, though not with anything that looked particularly effective against the constructs. Old rifles, shotguns, even a few homemade explosives. But what caught my attention wasn't their weapons. It was the map spread out on the table in front of them. A detailed layout of the region, marked with red circles and lines, and at the center of it all, a single word scrawled in bold letters. Source. I stepped out of the shadows, hands raised to show I wasn't a threat. They turned on me instantly, guns trained on my chest. I can't blame them. Trust is a rare commodity these days. But after some tense introductions and a lot of questions, they let me join them. Their leader, a grizzled ex-soldier named Captain Hayes, seemed skeptical of me at first. But when I told him about my work on the Magellan 7 project, his demeanor changed. "You're one of the engineers?" he asked, his voice sharp with urgency. "You worked on the probe?" I nodded, unsure where this was going. He leaned in closer, his eyes narrowing. "Then you might be able to help us." That's how I learned about the source. According to Hayes, the resistance had intercepted fragments of data from the construct's movements, patterns that suggested they weren't acting randomly. They were converging on specific locations, places where the electromagnetic anomalies were strongest. One of those locations was here, in the Rocky Mountains, and at the heart of it was something they called the source. "We think it's a relay," Hayes explained, "a kind of beacon transmitting signals to the constructs. If we can take it out, we might be able to disrupt their network, maybe even shut them down." It sounded insane, suicidal even. But it was the first real plan I'd heard since this nightmare began, and if there was even a chance it could work, I knew I had to try. The next few days were a blur of preparation. The resistance had managed to cobble together a small arsenal of experimental tech, EMP grenades, signal jammers, even a prototype railgun salvaged from an abandoned military base. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. My job was to analyze the data they'd collected and figure out how to locate the source. It wasn't easy. Most of the readings were corrupted, and the construct's interference made it nearly impossible to get a clear signal. But eventually, I found it. The source was buried deep beneath the mountains in a cavern system that didn't appear on any maps. Getting to it would mean navigating miles of treacherous terrain, avoiding patrols of constructs, and somehow surviving whatever defenses they'd put in place. But we didn't have a choice. If we didn't act now, the constructs would finish their sweep of the region, and we'd lose our window of opportunity. The night before the mission, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the sphere, about the visions it had shown me. Part of me wondered if this was all part of its plan, if we were walking straight into a trap. But then I remembered the faces of the people who had vanished, the families torn apart, the cities left in ruins. I couldn't let fear stop me. Not now. At dawn, we set out. There were 12 of us in total, each carrying as much gear as we could manage. The trek through the mountains was brutal, steep cliffs, freezing winds, and the constant threat of being spotted by the constructs. Twice, we had to take cover as one of the smaller drones passed overhead, its searchlights scanning the ground like a predator hunting for prey. But somehow, we made it. The entrance to the cavern was hidden behind a rock slide, almost impossible to spot unless you knew exactly where to look. As we descended into the darkness, the air grew colder, heavier. The walls seemed to hum with energy, a low vibration that set my teeth on edge. And then, we saw it. The source. It was massive, far larger than I'd imagined, an intricate web of glowing filaments stretching across the cavern like a living organism. At its center was a pulsating core, radiating waves of blue light that seemed to ripple through the air. It was beautiful, in a way, terrifyingly beautiful. But we didn't have time to admire it. Hayes barked orders, and the team sprang into action, setting up the EMP charges around the cavern. My job was to interface with the core, to try and disrupt its signal long enough for the charges to detonate. As I approached it, I felt a strange pull, like it was calling to me, whispering. And then, the figure appeared. It stepped out of the shadows, its form shifting and writhing like smoke. Its eyes, or voids where eyes should have been, locked onto mine, and I felt a wave of cold wash over me. For a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. And then it spoke. "You cannot stop us." Its voice wasn't a sound, it was a presence, filling my mind with images of destruction, of entire worlds consumed by the constructs. But there was something else, too. A flicker of hesitation, doubt. I don't know where I found the strength, but I forced myself to move. I reached the core, my hands trembling as I connected the interface. The figure didn't stop me. It just watched, its form flickering like a dying flame. As the charges detonated, the cavern erupted in a blinding flash of light. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was the figure, its form dissolving into the air, its voice echoing in my mind. "This is only the beginning." When I woke up, the source was gone. The constructs had vanished, their forms crumbling into ash. But the hum was still there. And I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot.